Sangye Cherdak Soki Choknam La Jangchu Bardu Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Chunyengi Pesonki Drola Pinchir Sangye Dupasho Sangye Cherdak Soki Choknam La Jangchu Bardu Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Chunyengi Pesonki Drola Pinchir Sangye Dupasho Sangye Cherdak Soki Chognam La Jantu Bardu Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Chinyengi Pesonam Ki Rola Pinchir Sangi Du Pasho.
Okay, let's just start with a couple of minutes meditation on the breath. So check your motivation for attending this session this morning. So if you find your motivation is a worldly one, just concerned with the happiness and comfort of this life, just trying to benefit this life alone, then recognize that as coming from attachment, one of the three poisonous minds. And as such, following attachment leaves a negative imprint on our consciousness, negative karma, and creates negative karma, and that sooner or later will ripen into an experience of suffering. So since that's what we don't want, we should replace that motivation with a positive one. And not just a lower positive motivation, such as wanting to be reborn in the upper realms in our next life, avoid rebirth in the lower realms. Not that, not simply to attain liberation for ourself alone. We should generate the highest motivation, especially since the topic we're studying is the Bodhisattva path. We should generate the Bodhisattva motivation of bodhicitta. So think, the purpose of my life is to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. In order to do that, first I have to reach enlightenment myself. So the purpose of my life is to free all sentient beings from suffering and lead them to enlightenment. In order to do that, I have to reach enlightenment myself. And there's no way to reach enlightenment without following the Bodhisattva path. And the essence of following the Bodhisattva path is taking and keeping the Bodhisattva vows. Therefore, I'm going to study this teaching by Geshe Tashi Tsering on the Bodhisattva vows in order to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So like that, generate bodhicitta motivation for what we're going to do the next couple of hours. Well, don't be scared, the next hour and a half. Okay, so last time we were we'd finished talking about the root downfalls of Bodhisattva vows, and we've come to the 46 secondary downfalls. So I hope we can get through these today. I don't know, it's quite a lot actually. As I said last time, that studying these vows, they're so rich in all kinds of aspects of the Dharma. We can really learn a lot just from studying these Bodhisattva vows. So Geshe says, the list of 46 secondary downfalls, like the root ones, is based on Lama Tsongkhapa's teaching called Jangshub Shunglam, the fundamental way to enlightenment. So that is commentary on the Sangha's Bodhisattva Bhumi, Tsongkhapa's commentary on this book. So I don't know if it's been translated into English. I'm going to try and find out. I don't think so from what I can tell, but that'd be amazing book to have if it were translated into English. And another reason to learn Tibetan, which is too late for some, but maybe not too late for others. These are secondary, not because they are necessarily less important or less negative than the root vows, but because they stem from the root vows and are not so likely to lead to other negative actions. Another translation of root in Tibetan is defeated, because if we engage in such an action, our entire bodhisattva vow is broken. So that's why they're called downfalls, defeats. As I mentioned before, in the pratimoksha vows, the monks and nuns have a certain number of vows, but there are 4 root vows, and they're called the 4 defeats, because if you break one of those, you lose your ordination. Defeat. So the root vow, they're defeats, because if we engage in such an action, our entire bodhisattva vow is broken. That is not necessarily the case with the secondary downfalls. The 46 secondary downfalls are mainly connected with the practice of the 6 perfections, or the 10 deeds, if we include the 4 means of gathering disciples. So the first section is the downfalls. Do you have this text if you want to follow along? Did we put a link in the chat to it?
Yes, the link is in the chat.
Yeah, the link's in the chat. So if you want to follow along, and if we don't finish going through these, I think we're going to have to get back to Lamp for the Path next week. So if you don't finish going through them now, you'll have to do it yourself over the next week. So let's see. There's a fair bit here. First section, the downfalls related to generosity. The first perfection of giving, perfection of charity, depends, different words. So first is not making offerings every day to the 3 jewels. So it means we have to make offerings every day to the 3 jewels if we've taken these bodhisattva vows. And a good thing to do even if we haven't. The first 7 downfalls are related to the first perfection, the perfection of generosity. Not making offerings every day to the 3 jewels is mainly to do with material generosity. So you remember there are 3 kinds of giving or generosity. Material offering, the offering of fearlessness, as it's translated, sounds a little odd, like, saving insects from drowning in a puddle of water, or, helping any sentient being out of difficult situations, deer caught in a fence, or, a fox caught in a trap, or, an animal drowning in a pond, they've fallen through the ice, you see all kinds of examples of this on Facebook, of the generosity of charity, of fearlessness. And then the third one, which is considered the highest form of generosity, is the giving of Dharma. So, that can be, giving teachings, or, giving people Dharma books, or sponsoring Dharma books, or supporting the Dharma Center, facilitating people coming to teachings, inviting teachers to teach, many different ways of practicing the highest form of generosity, giving of Dharma. But this one here is material offering, making material offerings. And, the result of, karmic result of generosity is to have resources in this and future lives. And so, if we find ourselves lacking in certain things, it's possibly because we hadn't practiced generosity enough for it to become, for that imprint to be powerful enough to manifest in this life. We've all done all these things, but question is, have we done them powerfully enough for that imprint to ripen sooner rather than later? Although it explicitly says the three jewels, so that's Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Lama Zopa Rinpoche doesn't like the translation, the three jewels. Konjog Sum, he translates as the three precious sublimes, or the three precious sublime ones, which is a little awkward in English, but that's a literal translation of the Tibetan three, Konjog Sum. Sum means three. Although it explicitly says the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, it can be implicitly taken to mean sentient beings who need material things, such as food and shelter. So there's an extension. When we take the tantric vows, there are 18 commitments in connection with the 5 dhyani Buddhas, and this one covers the commitments associated with the Buddha Ratnasambhava. So, when we do the Guru Puja, we take bodhisattva and tantric vows for those who've taken those vows before, but usually everybody reads on and you can see the tantric vows are connected with the so-called 5 dhyani Buddhas, again, Lama Zopa Rinpoche doesn't like the word dhyani. These are the heads of the Buddha families, 5 Buddha families. So this one, Buddha Ratnasambhava, giving is connected with him. The kinds of offerings we should make to the three jewels and sentient beings are traditional things such as flowers and incense, but also non-traditional things, things which are beautiful from both their own side and from the side of the mind giving them. So, when we do the 7 limb practice of offering, we think things actually offered and things mentally offered. So we visualize Pure Land with all these incredible Samantabhadra, beautiful offerings. So I think, I'm not sure if that counts here. We should really actually be making physical offerings on the altar or things like that. The attitude involved is also important. We should make offerings to 3 jewels and to sentient beings who need it with the wish that it will be very beneficial and productive. Right attitude generally means without self-interest. There should not be any attitude of wanting something in return. Making offerings to the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, does not have to be in the traditional way with a shrine and water bowls. We can just bring our mind to the 3 jewels and other sentient beings for a few seconds before we eat and offer the food to them. That is enough. So I think also you don't need to have taken bodhisattva vows. One of the commitments of just simple refuge, the very first thing we do when we become Buddhist, one of the commitments is to offer our food, anything we eat and drink, to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha before we eat or drink it. So that would be covered here also. A very practical thing we can do, however, if we've taken the bodhisattva vows, is to set up a shrine and an altar. Making that part of our daily practice will really help our minds. But if you can't because of circumstances, you don't have to do these things. I remember a great meditator, Yeshe Topten, who passed away a few years ago. Yeshe Topten was a very good friend of Lama Yeshe, and he lived up in the mountains for a long time in Dharamsala. And when Lama was at Tushita Meditation Center, Geshe-la would always come down, and he was invited to Italy. He went to Lama Tsongkhapa Institute, taught there for a while. Don't know that he went to any other FPMT centers. I think Wisdom Publications have published his commentary on Bodhisattva Charyavatara, called The Way of the Bodhisattva. anyway, a very a great meditator. In his cave in the Dharamsala Mountains, he had an altar with some small bowls, but because he had so few possessions, I mean, he was a real, Kadampa Geshe. He lived a very, very simple ascetic life. Because he had so few possessions, the altar usually also had his drinking bowl on it, filled with water or tea. So you see, all Tibetan monks, one of their essential things was a little wooden bowl. So when we became monks and nuns, we all had to have our little wooden bowls, but the monks used it for receiving, at puja when they offered tea, they all had their bowls, they didn't have disposable Dixie cups or whatever you call them. Or when they had tsampa, they'd put their tsampa in their bowl and mix it with Tibetan tea and eat that. So it was very useful. And then Geshe-la also used it on his altar. When he needed it, he took it and used it and then washed it, refilled it and put it back on the altar. When we visited him, he would take the other bowls from the altar to offer us tea, which is so practical. In our tradition, we should not use the master's cups, but he gave us no choice. That showed me that the offering is in the mind, not in the action. I spent a lot of time in Dharamsala, but I never went up to those caves where those ascetic meditators lived. Lama Tsongkhapa says making offerings can also be making prostrations. We can prostrate to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha in front of a statue, the scriptures, or a Sangha member to really get a feeling of the three jewels. So we can make offering of prostrations. So that's the first one. If we don't make offerings every day, the three jewels, we're transgressing this first secondary bodhisattva vow. 2, acting out of desire because of discontent. If the first secondary downfall is about not offering material things, the second is more about not supporting others' mental state. The practice of generosity is divided into making material offerings, saving sentient beings who are at risk of their life or emotionally are in difficulty, and making Dharma offerings, such as giving teachings. The second and third downfall are related to helping sentient beings who are at risk, either physically or mentally, if their mind is in a very disturbed state. To give that kind of help is practicing generosity, and to withhold it is breaking the vow. The vow says acting out of thoughts of desire because of discontent. Having a certain degree of contentment is an important part of keeping the bodhisattva vows. If we're discontent, then respect to others is very difficult. Respect can mean understanding other beings' mental and physical difficulties or acknowledging the good qualities of great beings. If a person is discontent, that acknowledgement is very difficult. When Lama Tsongkhapa talks of great beings here, he uses the word elder, someone who has made that bodhisattva vow commitment earlier than ourselves. And then the third one is not paying respect to those senior in ordination and in taking the bodhisattva vows. The difference between the second downfall and the third one, this one, is that the second one is not paying respect due to discontent, and the third one is not paying respect due to strong arrogance. So in the monasteries, the monks in pujas and stuff, they sit in long lines. You see the pictures where you see them actually doing it. So the order in which you sit, there's no kind of rushing in to get the best seat. You sit between this monk and that monk, because this one took ordination before you, and that one took ordination after you. So you know your place in the hierarchy. And if you disrobe and then you take ordination again, you have to go all the way down the bottom of the line. You can't sit further up the line than I can't believe I'm going to tell you this, but as I've mentioned, 100 times, I was traveling with Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa in 1975, and we were in Sydney, and there were when you get ordained, there's a part of the ceremony where you go up to the abbot or the preceptor, and he tells you something. I can't remember what the reason you go up there for. So you go up one at a time. So that is where when I got ordained, there were 6 of us, six monks, and I was the first one to go up. So then I became senior of those 6 monks. So then there was, Pandey and Gareth and Marcel, and there were 4 of us. There were 6 nuns and 4 monks, but the nuns get ordained in a separate ceremony. So of the 4 monks that were ordained, I was the senior one, and then so I always got to sit at the head of the line. Well, there were a couple of monks ahead of me who'd been ordained the previous year. So when we were in Sydney, we heard that His Holiness is giving. So that was a novice ordination. So when we were in Sydney, we heard that His Holiness is giving Gelong, a big full monk ordination to a bunch of Western monks, including couple of the monks that I was ordained with, Pandey and Garasparam. And so I must have looked a bit disappointed. And Lama Yeshe said, what's with you? And I said, they're getting Gelong ordination. It means I'm going to lose my place at the head of the line, And he looked at me in this incredible disbelief that thought could even come in my mind, instead of rejoicing at these monks getting full ordination, I was kind of a bit disappointed because I was so attached to my place in the, and that was what, 45 years ago, something like that. I've only gotten worse since then. So, mind is like, amazing thing and a horrible thing. Anyway, when we got back from that trip, I asked Lama Yeshe if I could. We got back when we got back to India after traveling around the world. We went up to Dharamsala. So usually after the Lamas went to the West, they'd go to Dharamsala and they'd go and report to His Holiness what had happened. And often before they went, they'd go to see His Holiness and get his advice about, anything he suggested that would be good for them to do on that trip. So, in that way, His Holiness has always been very involved in the Lama's activity and the development of the FPMT. And, I'm sure a big part of the organization's success is due to His Holiness's blessings and input, So when we got back, I asked Lama if I could get ordained, and maybe I was thinking, well, at least I want to cement myself not too far down the line, So anyway, he was kind of said, I don't know. He was kind of a bit iffy about it, and I don't know why he was iffy, but he said, well, okay. So when we got back, when I look back, it was like amazing. He asked Tsenchab Serkong Rinpoche, you remember we looked at his teachings on Ganden Lagema a few months or a few years ago, whenever it was. And so he was a preceptor, Serkong Rinpoche. And then when you get full ordination, there need to be 10 monks altogether. So there's the preceptor and 9 other fully ordained monks. And I think they have to have been fully ordained for at least 10 years. So then he pulled all these geshis down from retreat and all these monks came and it was just me. And he looked at me and said, this is a big responsibility. You've got all these Serkong Rinpoche, and all these monks, they're looking at you. And I was like, okay, whatever. And, well, it lasted 11 years, so better than nothing, I guess. But yeah, anyway, it was a very special time. And as a result, I didn't have to sit that far down the line either. Okay. So not paying respect to those senior in ordination and bodhisattva vows. With the monks, I think it's when you became ordained, and the bodhisattva vows don't sort of trump that in terms of the monastic order. So if we don't respect those who are senior in ordination or in bodhisattva vows, then it's a transgression of this secondary vow. 4, not answering others' questions out of negligence, though one is capable of doing so. When people ask a question sincerely, it's very important to answer. If we ignore their request, then that is also breaking the vows. But there are certain exceptions. If we're very sick or incapable of answering, that's all right. It's also not necessary to answer it if, during a Dharma discussion, someone asks, someone asks a non-Dharma question and the answer would break the flow of the discussion. Of course, when someone totally new asks us what emptiness is all about, then we're in a real quandary. Teaching emptiness to the untrained is breaking a rude vow, and not answering, though we might be capable, is also breaking a vow. I think here we must bear in mind all the circumstances. Is the person just asking out of idle curiosity or a genuine desire to understand? We need to give the answer in accordance with the motivation of the person asking. I mean, we can't really see the person's motivation, so we just have to use our judgment there. My feeling is, depending on the angle the question is coming from, we should stay very closely to the actual words of the Buddha, using terms such as non-self, rather than swamp them with a load of Madhyamaka Prasangika philosophy. Only later, if we manage to get further, can we go more into the subtler views. It's a very difficult point, though. Quite fairly early in the piece, I remember we were fairly new monks and nuns. We were in the Gompa receiving some teachings from Lama Yeshe. And one of the nuns said to Lama, "Lama, why don't you ever teach about emptiness?" And he kind of looked shocked. And he kind of sat back and said, what are you talking about? I'm always teaching about emptiness. So I think she meant, why aren't you teaching like, the four means of analysis, or teaching on, Chandrakirti or Nagarjuna or something like that, So then he paused and he said, okay, so you want a teaching on emptiness? Here's a teaching on emptiness. Don't believe what your senses tell you. Don't believe what your senses tell you. That was it. So I think if someone asked, what is emptiness? That's how we could answer, you know. And I just saw the other day, His Holiness was saying, the first thing he thinks when he wakes up in the morning is, I mean, I don't know if His Holiness really sleeps or what happens when His Holiness looks like he's sleeping, you know, but I think he gets up like 3 or 4 in the morning, they're pretty early. It's about the time I'm going to bed. And the first thing he thinks is, things don't exist as they appear. He reminds himself, he said, things don't exist as they appear. So it's another way of saying what Lama said, you know, don't believe what your senses tell you. Things appear to our senses. They look real. They're out there, really out there, coming at us. That's the opposite to reality. So normally I try to think when I get up in the morning that, you know, I've said before, I have this amulet that one of the monks in Singapore made. This says, collection of powerful sutras and mantras amulet. So there's a whole different, in this tiny thing, there's a whole lot of sutras and mantras. So you take it off when you go to bed and think, you know, you dedicate your sleep to the enlightenment of sentient beings. And if I die during my sleep, may I be reborn wherever it's beneficial, wherever it's most beneficial for sentient beings, because you don't want to sleep on it and lie on top of it and all that when you know, turning around in your sleep. And then when you put it on in the morning, I try to remember bodhicitta and think, you know, that I dedicate, you know, this day, this week, this month, this year, this life to the enlightenment of all sentient beings. So if I didn't have something physical to remind me, I wouldn't think that. I'd just start thinking about breakfast or something, you know. So, so it's just a way I have to trick myself. So now, as well as thinking that, then I have to think things don't exist as they appear. So, you know, we don't understand emptiness or Madhyamika, Prasangika philosophy very well. But if someone asks us, you know, what is reality? What is emptiness? We can say that, you know, don't believe what your senses tell you, or things don't exist as they appear. And when they ask you more about that, refer them to Nagarjuna. 5. Anyway, so we're supposed to answer questions, not just about emptiness, you know, about anything, if we're capable of doing that. And if we're not, at least we can maybe suggest where they can find the answer. So someone once said, if you don't know the answers, you can't know everything. So if you don't know the answer to something, at least you should know where to look it up. So that's kind of useful. 5, selfishly not accepting invitations due to pride, the wish to hurt others' feelings or anger or laziness. So not accepting invitations due to pride or wanting to hurt others' feelings or out of anger or out of laziness. So these different negative motivations that we don't accept invitations. When people with the right intention invite us as a guest, we have to accept. The first 4 vows are about increasing our own generosity. This one is about giving others the opportunity to practice it. if we do not accept an invitation for a meal or a drink when it's been genuinely offered, we're blocking their practice of generosity. Bodhisattvas should not only increase their own practice of generosity, but also give other beings the chance to increase theirs. So this is one of the benefits of being a fundraiser. One of the, if you're trying to raise money for, Dharma project, I think you don't tell your prospects that, I'm giving you an opportunity, but at least you should think that, understand that actually you're asking for something, but actually you're giving them the opportunity to create merit, the cause of happiness and success. So, so a lot of people feel awkward about, I couldn't ask people for money, it's, they might not like me or this or that, some kind of selfish motivation. So you think that when you're asking people to support a Dharma project, you're giving them an opportunity to create merit. But you don't beat them over the head with that. Traditionally, Lama Tsongkhapa says ordained monks and nuns must go and receive offerings, either when they're invited to lay people's homes or the lay community brings offerings to the monastery. But there are some exceptions. For example, fully ordained monks have a vow not to eat after noon. So declining an invitation after noon is not breaking your vow. The vow quite clearly says selfishly not accepting. So if there are circumstances such as it might risk your life, or break your precepts, then we can refuse. Okay. 6, not accepting others' gift out of jealousy, anger, etc., or simply to hurt others. When somebody offers you things of great value, there's a danger. If you accept out of attachment or refuse out of jealousy or anger, then you're creating negativities. If one bodhisattva rejects the gift because it is very valuable and they do not want to have valuable things, while another accepts it with strong attachment, both are actually breaking the 6th vow. Lama Tsongkhapa says, when somebody offers a gift to you with the right motivation, whether it's valuable or not, you must accept. The 5th and 6th vows are connected with increasing other beings' practice of generosity. So 7 is not giving Dharma teaching to those who wish to learn. The 7th vow is connected with the 3rd type of practicing generosity, giving Dharma. This is the most important form of generosity. To give Dharma, we do not have to have certain degrees or have the name teacher. Sharing whatever we know with others is giving Dharma. When we genuinely share our knowledge in a general discussion on Buddha Dharma, that is giving Dharma to the people who need it. One of the features of the Kopan courses, we did a lot of meditation, we received a lot of lamrim teachings, and there were also discussion groups. So the discussion groups were, to help people clarify, new people especially, clarify their understanding. But these groups were led by students who had attended previous courses. So it was actually giving everybody an opportunity to share their understanding of the Dharma. So as well as, being designed to help clarify people's understanding of the concepts, it was also an opportunity for people to create the generosity of giving Dharma. We may not get the chance to give Dharma to thousands of people, but day by day or month by month, if we take the opportunity through the discussion with others, that is our way to give Dharma to others. It's sometimes said that the present masters are kinder than the Buddhas because they are here with us now in this very needy time, the time when spirituality is in a very weak state. So if we manage to contribute some knowledge to sentient beings, that's also the same, isn't it? It is really important to share our own Dharma knowledge. If we don't, even though we have the answer, that is worse than not giving material things, because material things will relieve only physical difficulties, whereas this is relieving mental difficulties, which is far more important. So, all these topics are, we talk about analytical meditation. These are all topics for analytical meditation. We look at the vow, not giving a Dharma teaching those who wish to learn. We read the commentary and then we think about it. See, what does this really mean? How does it apply to me? Does it make sense? Does it fit in with all the other Dharma teachings that I've heard? And then, even if we haven't taken the vow, then we come to the conclusion, yes, it's really beneficial to give the Dharma to those who wish to learn. So, like that with all these different vows. So it's not enough just to read through them like this, but we really need to think, meditate on each one slowly, gradually. And see how we can apply it in our own life. Especially if we've taken the vows. Okay, the second section of the downfalls related to the second perfection, the perfection of morality or discipline or ethics, whatever you call it. Sorry. The next 9 secondary downfalls connected with the second perfection of morality. Ethics can be practiced in 3 ways. The first is to make sure we do not engage in practices that cause pain and difficulties. Then, when we're capable of not indulging in those kind of activities, to take it further by generating more virtuous thoughts. In Tibetan, it's literally to collect virtue. The Tibetan word for a fully ordained monk is gelong. Ge means virtue. And Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche translates long, gelong, as beggar. He says a monk is a virtue beggar. He's begging for virtue. So that's what Geshe is saying here. Generating more virtuous thought, in Tibetan, it's literally to collect virtue. So you collect virtue, you beg for virtue to create merit, and then you create merit. Then the third way is through those thoughts to actually engage in deeds to benefit others. So some kind of sequence is there, from refraining from committing negative actions to actually creating more virtuous actions to finally actively benefiting others. So remember what His Holiness always says, it's the essence of Dharma. If we want to have one thought, apart from things don't exist as they appear, we see if you can't help others, at least don't harm them. You know, that's, if you want to sum up practice of Buddhism, that's the pithy little phrase that sums up practice of Buddhism. If you can't help others, at least don't harm them. In other words, the best thing we can do is to help others, you know, in these different ways. But if that's beyond us, at least refrain from giving them harm. Of course, you know, it's impossible to live in samsara without at least inadvertently harming others. You know, when we walk around or when we do all kinds of things, you know, we're going to be harming sentient beings one way or another. Even if we're vegans and we just eat rice and vegetables, still, you know, animals are harmed in the growing and the harvesting and the distribution of those foods. It's, you know, the only way to finally stop sentient beings is to get out of samsara altogether, you know, to attain liberation. But at least we should minimize the, you know, inadvertent harm we give to others as much as possible. And certainly the overt harm, we should stop doing that, you know, physically or mentally harming others. If you can't help others, at least don't harm them. So the eighth secondary downfall is ignoring and insulting someone who's committed any of the 5 heinous crimes, you know, these five negativities of immediate retribution, talked about many times, any of these 5, or defiled his or her vows of individual liberation, or treating him or her with contempt. So someone's who, anyway, so see what Geshe-la says. These 9 secondary downfalls connected to morality can be divided into 3. The first 4 are for the sake of others. The next 3 are for our own sake, and the last 2 are for both. So, you know, this is what's going to unfold. The first one is mainly for others' sake. The examples given are of people who've committed very heavy negative actions, such as one of the 5 immediate negative actions, you're killing parents, drawing blood from a Buddha. We talked about that last time. You know, killing an arhat, so killing parents, mother, father, killing an arhat, drawing blood from Buddha, creating a schism in the Sangha community. So these are the 5 extreme negative actions. They can be purified, but if they're not, they lead immediately to rebirth in the lower realms. They're so strong. At the time of death, they are going to be the throwing karma that comes up as the last, in our last thought moment, and throws us into the next life. Or maybe there are monks or nuns who've committed one of those 4 defeats, you know, the 4 root downfalls that disqualify you from maintaining your ordination. So we might sort of feel contempt for someone, oh, you know, what a failure, big loser, broke his vows, couldn't become a monk again. So, so these people are mentally in a very difficult position because the majority of them know they've committed these actions. If we neglect them or if we do not support them, we're actually breaking the vow. So, you know, instead of having contempt, we have to have compassion. We must support them, even if they've committed great crimes. They are people who need the most help to restore their commitments and their stable mental state. We must help them do that. 9, not observing the precepts of moral conduct because one wishes to ingratiate oneself with others. There is often a great temptation to do something harmful just to get respect from others. This is what the second of the downfalls connected to morality is about. We can see that in our everyday life. Lama Tsongkhapa, however, uses the example of the fully ordained monk. For them, it's wrong to try to impress people by saying they're helping others simply because they've taken the bodhisattva vows. And because of that, the lower vows are irrelevant. Or that they can break their bodhisattva vows because they haven't taken tantric vows, because they have taken tantric vows, which are higher. So, you know, it's kind of to go along with the negative majority because you don't have the courage of your convictions. And you see how people are swept up in different things, you know. Ten, complying with the minor precepts when the situation demands one's disregard of them for the better benefit of others. This is very similar to the previous downfall, but from the other angle. Here we do not break a minor vow, even though we're harming others by keeping it. So I mentioned, you know, the situation of Lama Yeshe in Thailand, you know, when all the monks are very strict about not touching women. And, you know, the women dive off the sidewalk as a monk walks down the middle of the sidewalk. You know, some of them looking fairly arrogant to me would do, you know. So when Lama Yeshe was there, he was hugging women and shaking their hand and everything. People were freaking out, you know. So in a way, you know, it's one of the differences between the Mahayana and the Hinayana. So the next one explains a little more, I think. You know, and I mentioned that situation. Well, let's do the next one. 11, not committing one of the 7 negative actions of body, speech, and mind. What about mind? The 7 negative actions of body and speech. You know, these are the, I don't know why mind is in there. When universal love and compassion deem it necessary in the particular instance. There might be circumstances where, with pure bodhicitta motivation, we're compelled to break one of the 7 non-virtuous actions connected with the body and speech. You know, 3 of the body, you know, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, 4 of speech, lying, speaking harshly, slandering, and gossiping. So I gave the example, Lama Yeshe always used to say that someone's trying to kill Lama, he's running out with a knife, and Lama comes into your house and he's hiding in one of the back rooms, and the person comes to the door and says, "Hey, have you seen Thupten Yeshe? I want to kill him." You're allowed to lie in that situation. Say, "No, I don't know where he is." The very traditional example of the Buddha is of the Buddha in a previous incarnation as a bodhisattva. I think we all know this story. He was traveling on a ship with 500 people. Well, there were 500 traders and they were going to some island to collect jewels. I mean, these stories appear in the text. I don't know which island it is and why they were going there to collect jewels, but they all go to this place to collect jewels. And then one of the people, and the Buddha in his previous life as a bodhisattva was one of the people there, and he saw that one of the others had this plan that after they'd collected the jewels, when they were coming back with the whole ship full of jewels, he had this plan to kill the captain and kill all the other people and save all the jewels for himself. So create incredible negative karma of all kinds of different negative karmas. So in order to save the lives of those others, the Bodhisattva said, I know it's negative to kill a human being. I know that I'll be reborn in hell for doing this, but I don't care. I'm going to do it in order to not only save the lives of all these people, but also to save this person from creating that terrible negative karma. I mean, he'd already created a certain amount with this motivation, with this intention, but the other branches of going through with it and completing the action weren't there. So he killed him. But because of his bodhicitta motivation, instead of going to the lower realms, being reborn in hell, he actually advanced on the path, became closer to enlightenment. So anyway, so that's what this story is. The vow says that if those exceptional circumstances arise, we must not hold back because we might be breaking a vow. If we need to act for the greatest good, regardless of the results for ourselves. If not killing that person is more beneficial, of course, we should not kill them. If killing that person and saving others' lives is more beneficial, then we should do so. But here we have to be very careful. We need great, great wisdom to understand such things. And, Lama Yeshe went further. He said, if we, rather than rationalize killing someone by pretending this, we really have to have clairvoyance. We have to really be able to see the other person's intention, and we have to also be able to see the results of these different possibilities, the results of these different actions, of killing or not killing. So, it's possible we don't have that kind of clairvoyance, so we have to be careful. Lama Tsongkhapa comments on this at length, going through all the 10 negative actions in connection with body, speech, and mind. So that'd be in his commentary on the Bodhisattva Bhumi, which I'm going to see if has been translated, but I don't think so. 12, accepting things that are acquired through one of the 5 wrong livelihoods. So this also comes in the preliminary practices, when it talks about when we make the offerings on our altar, they should be obtained without through means other than these 5 wrong livelihoods. So the first 4 downfalls connected with the perfection of morality are for the sake of others. So those are the 4 we did. So the next 3, this one and the next 2, are for our own sake. To gain something to eat or drink, to get somewhere to live, or to gain a reputation using one of the 5 wrong livelihoods is a downfall. The 5 wrong livelihoods are flattery, hinting, bribery, extortion, and deceit. Flattery means saying nice things to someone in order to get your way. Oh, you're so kind and generous. I see that you gave, our friends some money. Or maybe that's hinting. Hinting is being deceitful and underhand when you want something. not coming out with it, but letting that person know through hints. Oh, that, that money you gave me last year was so helpful. Or giving a small thing in order to get back something much bigger, bribery. Similarly, deceit and extortion are to do with deceiving people to get what you want. So coercion, blackmail, or deceit, Like, remember the story of Geshe Ben Kungil. He was in his cave and his benefactor was coming to visit him. So he cleaned up his altar and he arranged everything beautifully and made his whole place very tidy in order to impress his benefactor so they would keep supporting him. So then when he checked his motivation and saw how worldly it was that he'd done all these things, so then he scraped up some dirt off the floor of his cave and threw it all over his altar, So then his guru, Padampa Sangye, who was teaching, miles away, in the middle of his teaching, he stopped and smiled. And the student said, "What are you smiling at?" He said, "Oh, my student, this morning, just now, my student, Ben Kungil, made the purest offering in all of Tibet." They were like, "What did he do?" He said, "He threw dirt in the mouth of the 8 worldly dharmas." So the 5 wrong livelihoods. So you're not allowed to do those. Lama Tsongkhapa said, the reason why people do these things is lack of self-dignity, lack of shame, no inner morality. When others aren't watching, we do negative things, things that we wouldn't do if people were watching. Okay, so that's the first of these 3, of doing things for our own sake. Wasting time on frivolous actions, such as carelessness, lack of pure morality, dancing, playing music just for fun, gossiping, and also distracting others in meditation. This downfall is about wasting time due to strong attachment to sense pleasures. Wasting time is bad in a worldly sense, but when we've taken the bodhisattva vows to work for all sentient beings, then it's really the wrong thing to do. So pretty easy to do all this. So if we do these things, playing music, watching TV, we've got to try and somehow make it beneficial for sentient beings. And try and do these actions if we're going to do them with bodhicitta. But, it can be a bit of a stretch. (14) Misconceiving that bodhisattvas do not attempt to attain liberation and failing to view delusions as things to be eliminated. Misconceiving that bodhisattvas do not attempt to attain liberation, the goal of the Hinayana, and failing to view delusions as things to be eliminated. The bodhisattva's main aim is to attain full enlightenment. So if you say bodhisattvas do not wish to attain liberation, that is wrong. There's no way to attain enlightenment without first going through liberation. Lama Tsongkhapa says bodhisattvas have gone beyond the goal of individual liberation due to their motivation to free all sentient beings. But to say they have no interest in liberation is entirely wrong. Their aim is to attain liberation as well as to attain full enlightenment. Our main aim is to attain full enlightenment. Therefore, the delusions that we need to abandon are the more subtle, deep-rooted ones. But at the same time, we need to abandon the less subtle delusions, the gross delusions, that are obscuring our attainment of liberation. There's no way we can ignore the less subtle obscurations and concentrate on the more subtle ones. Our minds do not work like that. So we know, there are two so-called obscurations. Dipa is the word in Tibetan. Nyundip and Shedrip. So the gross delusions are the obscuration due to delusion. They are, greed, ignorance, hatred, the 6 root delusions, 20 secondary delusions, the things that keep us in cyclic existence. But even when we attain liberation, we still have Shedrip, or the obscurations to knowledge, or the obscurations to omniscience. So these are the imprints left by the gross delusions on our consciousness. We're so habituated to acting under the influence of the gross delusions that even when we've eliminated, their residue somehow remains. And so, the habit of seeing things through deluded perception remains. So we have to the subtle delusions, we have to eliminate those as well. So we can't say, I'm bodhisattva, I'm just going to work on eliminating the subtle delusions. The gross ones, I'm sort of beyond them, when you're not. 15. So so those 3 were for our own sake. The next 2, the last 2, connected with the practice of morality, are to do with both, benefiting ourselves and others. 15, not living up to one's precepts. The last 2 downfalls connected with morality are about not harming both ourselves, either ourselves or others. Not living up to one's precepts. A good reputation can be an important tool to assist a bodhisattva to help others. This has to do with having the capability of helping others, but somehow not using it. Lama Tsongkhapa uses the example of not taking a question seriously, even when we know the right answer and the person's motivation is sincere. Giving the wrong answer, making a joke of it because we're reluctant to make the effort, that kind of response will destroy that other person's trust in us. Some people are always flippant. I think I'm a bit like that. It's good to make people laugh, but we need to know when to be serious too. Always hiding in jokes and games is denying our own capabilities and is harming both ourselves and others. We're not fully helping others and they're not benefiting from the capabilities we have. Well, Lama Yeshe was, always laughing and joking and making people feel uplifted. It was just amazing to be in his presence. And if you watch him teaching, see videos on YouTube, wherever, he was always kidding and, sort of mock, putting people down. But then he'd always, right the ship, as it were. And he had this famous admonition, because he'd say, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I'm joking, And then later he'd say, I'm not joking when I say I'm joking. I'm not joking when I say I'm joking. So you're like, what? So he'd couch, serious things in a very light way. And, when the Lamas were teaching a course together, which was, most of the time, a lot of the time, Lama Zopa Rinpoche would teach, sort of no holds barred lamrim, not sugarcoating anything, this is how it is, suffering, lower realms, attachment, the 8 worldly dharmas, hell realms, because, the early part of a lamrim is all about that. So people get a bit depressed, So at the right time, then Lama Yeshe would come in and give a talk. Say, don't take too seriously what Zopa says, it's, and he'd make everybody feel good and he'd be laughing. But in what he was saying, it was very serious, actually. And, never really contradicting what Rinpoche said, So the last one here, the 16th, secondary downfall, is not correcting others who are motivated by delusions. So when we see somebody's making a mistake, we must talk to them with the right motivation and try to help them correct that mistake. If we help other people not to make a mistake again, that is very helpful for that person, but will also indirectly help us as well. I was having a bit of a discussion online with a monk who was a very strong anti-vax person. And, I was trying to understand, and maybe I was giving him some statistics and this and that, And then I just got this reply from him this morning, which completely like, whoa. So I won't go into it, but basically his thesis is that this whole pandemic, it's not really a pandemic, it's a hoax perpetrated in order to establish a new world order. Okay. I don't know how I'm going to, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's a delusion. And, how do you help him see that? I don't know. But if I don't try, maybe I'm breaking this vow, not correcting others who are motivated by delusions. Well, I don't know, maybe the new world would be better than this one. In some ways, it couldn't be worse. So the third section of these downfalls related to the third perfection of patience. 4 secondary downfalls connect to the third perfection of patience. 17, parting from the 4 noble disciplines. The first of the 4 is looking at the source of losing our patience. Unless we have these 4 noble disciplines, we will not be able to keep our vows or develop patience. Even if we have had many highest Yoga Tantra initiations and can do advanced sadhanas and visualizations, without these 4 qualities, we cannot really call ourselves a practitioner. So the first noble discipline is that if somebody gets angry with us, we should not respond in the same way with anger. At least we should maintain a neutral state of mind. The second noble quality is that if somebody harms us physically, we should not respond in the same way. We should not retaliate physically, harming their body in response to the harm they did. So these first 2 are about not retaliating, verbally, mentally, verbally, and then physically. The third quality is that if somebody criticizes us or discusses our faults, we should not respond in the same way, picking on their weak points or criticizing them. In Tibetan, we say, if somebody damages your nest, you shouldn't damage theirs. The last quality is that if somebody argues with us, we should not respond in the same way by arguing back. Of course, if it helps them, we can skillfully discuss or debate a point, but that sense of adversary, should not be there. Adversary? So these are all to do with not retaliating in response to their harm. Remember, there's a line in Guru Puja, in the Perfection of Patience verse, I think, somewhere. So it's kind of turning the other cheek. But as Don Jr. said recently, what's this turning the other cheek? Where has that got us? So that's another point of view. These four noble disciplines are very basic Buddhist teachings. They often come up, they come up often in the Theravadan tradition, but are also an important part of the Mahayana tradition. It seems to me they show what it really means to be a practitioner. Keeping many commitments, doing great recitations, these are wonderful activities, but these four are the really real practice. Lama Tsongkhapa says, if we lack these four noble disciplines within ourselves, we lack the main cause to be patient. If we do not have these four qualities, no matter what people have done to us, people will not respond to us in the same way. (18) Neglecting, so that section really needs a bit of contemplation. 18, neglecting those who are angry with you. If the first downfall to do with patience is responding to anger, this one is as bad, neglecting someone who is angry. By ignoring them, we're adding fuel to the fire. Maybe the gross level of anger will disperse after a while, but by neglecting them, there'll always be a deep down resentment. It's much better to negotiate with someone who is angry, to try to bring them closer. Reasoning with them, listening to them, trying to see their point of view, these things will help reduce their anger, not ignoring them. Ignoring them won't. These first two downfalls are to do with ourselves, dealing with our own impatience and anger. 19, the next one, refusing to accept the apologies of others. So we had that before. This is another way to deal with somebody else's anger. If someone knowingly or unknowingly treats us very badly, and after a period of time comes to understand what they've done and offers a really genuine, sincere apology, then we must accept that apology. Otherwise, their anger will continue and will probably grow. This is very similar to the third downfall, but that one needs the four factors. The third root downfall, remember we talked about it last week. But that one needs the four factors to be a complete downfall, and this one does not. Perhaps if the four factors are not there, it is not the third root downfall, but this one, the secondary downfall. So remember the 18 root downfalls, 16 of them needed the four factors to be complete. But the other two, wrong views and giving up bodhicitta, didn't need the four factors to be a complete root downfall. So finally, 20, acting out thoughts of anger. This downfall is also to do with not searching out the antidote to anger. The Tibetan is literally accepting anger when it comes, although it has the feeling of not just accepting it, but sometimes actually pursuing it. In Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation, it's clear that in order not to break this vow, we must actively search for a solution for our anger. The 6th chapter of Shantideva's Bodhicharyavatara has many methods and reasons to do with reducing and stopping anger. So, Wisdom have published this book by Lama Zopa on the 6 perfections. So there's a chapter on patience, but I do. So I have it here. There's a whole book on patience. So it'll cover all these topics, these 4 downfalls in more detail, the techniques for overcoming anger by practicing patience. So, these 2 books are very relevant to what we're talking about here in the Bodhisattva vows. So, these are the real Bodhisattva practices, but done on the basis of taking the Bodhisattva vows. For the downfalls related to joyous effort, the next perfection, joyous effort, has 3 secondary downfalls connected with it. I'm not going to finish these. Downfalls related to joyous effort or enthusiastic perseverance, virya, or tsundru in Tibetan. The next perfection, joyous effort, 3 secondary downfalls connected to it. 21, gathering circles of disciples out of desire for respect and material gain. Starting a cult. The first downfall is about making effort, but doing it with the wrong motivation. You're a teacher, but the work you do is not joyous effort because your base motivation is to get a good reputation and to have many disciples or students and 46 Rolls Royces. This kind of mind is very active. The English translation is gathering circles of disciples because this commentary was written for monks. You wouldn't expect Lama Tsongkhapa to say, work hard on a corporate merger. The main point is the effort being put into wrong things, not searching for the right solution, not searching for the right circumstances to do the meditation. So much of what we do here in the West involves a lot of energy going in the wrong direction. We are so active here, dozens of emails every day, always rushed and apologizing on the telephone, sorry, no time to talk, and booking friends. Well, this is old. And booking friends in our philofaxes. Anyone remember the philofax? All that rush is very, so this was 20 years ago. All this rush is very energetic, but not very productive spiritually. I'm not saying don't work to pay your bills. I'm not going to pay your bills for you, but there must be some kind of limit on how much effort goes into the mechanics of staying alive. There must be a balance. Gathering circles of disciples out of desire for respect and material gain is a traditional explanation. We may not do that, but the vow can equally be applied to the kind of life we lead in the West. Just give me a moment. Sorry, I just had to yell at Wendy for something with bodhicitta. 22, again, wasting time and energy on trivial matters. In Buddhism, there are different kinds of lazinesses, different kinds of laziness. Just as working 60 hours a week to make lots of money and have a career is considered lazy because it's avoiding doing what is meaningful, so this second mind, wasting time and effort on trivial matters, is lazy. This is more what we do. This is more what we would normally see as laziness, though. This is the couch potato, where there's no energy, no action, everything is completely flat. So the three kinds of laziness, if I can remember them. There's the laziness of being attached to worldly work. So it's what Geshe-la says here about working 60 hours a week to make lots of money, having a career, because it's avoiding practicing Dharma, doing what's meaningful. If you're not a Dharma student, not a Dharma practitioner, of course, this is what you do. But from Dharma point of view, being attached to being busy with worldly things, that's a kind of laziness. So then the second is the laziness of procrastination. So this is the lazy vehicle, what I call the manjana. We have the Hinayana, we have the Mahayana, and we have the manjana. Putting it off till tomorrow, putting off our practice to tomorrow, or what we could be doing today. As Buddha said, you don't know what's going to come next, tomorrow or the next life. So, if the next life comes before tomorrow, then the manjana was a huge fail. And then the third kind of laziness is a laziness of delusions of incapability. I'll never understand emptiness. I'll never be able to visualize the Buddha. I won't be able to do this. I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I'm too stupid. I have too many bad habits. All this nonsense, which is not true, but it's an excuse for not practicing harder, for not putting more of our life into the Dharma. So those are three kinds of laziness. So if we waste time and energy on trivial matters, that's this, we're breaking this vow. 23, being addicted to frivolous talk. I think we all know this one. Do we put effort into gossip and idle chat? Does it waste our time? I don't think I need to discuss this. Well, it's not only, breaking bodhisattva vow, it's also one of the 10 non-virtuous, one of the 4 non-virtuous actions of speech. Gossiping, as Lama Zopa says, it's the lightest of negativities, but the greatest waste of time. 23. So then we're halfway through. So that's all we have time for today. Should I continue going through the rest next week, or should we leave it to you and pick up the text?
I appreciate going through them. I have not studied them before, and also I really appreciate it.
Having you explain them is very helpful.
Well, I'm just reading Geshe-la's explanation, but with a few sidetracks, as usual.
Good, I would appreciate continuing.
Okay, so
Yes.
promise. What? So Pinky promised, is something like that? Promise to finish next week, and then get back to Lama Atisha. So one more session on this. Okay. So personally, I find it useful because I don't spend enough time studying this myself either. So so if you do it for my benefit, I'd really appreciate it. So we'll just finish these off next week, and like that. So thanks again, everybody. And remember, we started by generating bodhicitta. We've been studying the Bodhisattva vows, so you can't get much more Mahayana than that. And as a result, we've created a lot of merit, so we don't want to lose it. So we're dedicated, because of this merit. So visualize this huge mountain of merit that we've created, and offer it and dedicate it to the enlightenment of all sentient beings. So think, because of this merit, may all sentient beings quickly reach enlightenment. Okay, so that's the essence of these dedication prayers that we'll do. Thanks, Bob.
Sanji perki jukshin me tok tram re rab ding ji ni de gen pa de sange jing du mik te uwagi droku nam dag jing la cher pa shog je tun la me kutse rab ten ching nam katrin le chok chir ge pa dang lo sang ten pe dren me sa sum gi dro e mun sol tak tu neg yu chig yedam guru ratna mandala kam niryatayami. In that snow-mountain encircled land, source of every benefit and joy, may Lord Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig remain in life till samsara's end. Savior of the snowland teachings and transmigratory beings who extensively clarifies the path that unifies emptiness and compassion. To the lotus in the hand, Lord Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be fulfilled. You who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Vajrayana's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Through this virtue, may I swiftly, having gained Guru Buddha state, place each and every sentient being without exception in that state. Precious supreme Bodhi mind, may where unborn arise, and where born never decline, but increase forevermore. Nid me tse me ter chen chen rizik, dream yin pe wang po jam pel yang, gong chen ke pe tsu gen song ka pa. Lo sang rak pe jabla son wa de. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good week.